Bardella, advisor to the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee and former House Oversight Committee spokesman. And so you know this committee process very well, Kurt. Now that this is passed in the House, it does go over to the Senate. And I wonder if you have thoughts on that. I mean, if, in fact, Mitch McConnell is able to block the truth about January 6th and having a commission like this, could a committee process, in your view, accomplish some of the same goals?
Absolutely, it can, Joy. This is why I just wrote a piece that just went up minutes ago at USA Today talking about if Republicans successfully block the formation of this committee, what Democrats should do is use the tools of their majority and have a select committee. I mean, I remember the Republicans using the select committee on Benghazi to, quote unquote, investigate for 5 years, having Hillary Clinton testify for 11 hours in front of their committee. There is nothing stopping Democrats if Republicans want to obstruct a 9/11 commission that would have been bipartisan, that would have given Republicans a say in the subpoena process, in the deposition, in the evidence gathering process. If they walk away from that, so be it. We can have our own hearings. We can have our own committee. We can get the facts, because it's very clear that there's only one political party in America that actually cares about getting the truth, and that's the Democratic Party. I mean, on some level, Joy, asking Republicans to participate in this investigation, it'd be like asking members of al-Qaeda to be on the 9/11 commission. These people were part of the problem. They are part of the reason why January 6th happened, and through their conduct, through their rhetoric, through their actions at that Oversight Committee hearing last week, it's very clear that they're intent on being the getaway driver to these Democratic arsonists.
Yeah, it's hard to make that. It's hard to argue with that. Here's Tim Ryan making some of those same points earlier today.
Incoherence. No idea what you're talking about. Benghazi, you guys chased the former Secretary of State all over the country, spent millions of dollars. We have people scaling the Capitol, hitting the Capitol Police with lead pipes across the head, and we can't get bipartisanship. What else has to happen in this country? Cops. This is a slap in the face to every rank and file cop in the United States. If we're going to take on China, if we're going to rebuild the country, if we're going to reverse climate change, we need two political parties in this country that are both living in reality, and you ain't one of them.
Might the Republicans have played a poor hand here? Because I remember those Benghazi committee hearings when they're held in a sort of partisan sort of circumstance, as opposed to what would have been a bipartisan, non-political commission. Well, you can sort of produce lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of sound bites and lots of questions for some current members about who was giving Capitol tours, stuff they might not want to answer.
Yeah, I mean, I know about you, but I'm pretty sure that Donald Trump could not withstand 11 hours of testimony the way that Hillary Clinton conducted basically a master class and taken down people who are mansplaining to her up there. But, I mean, at the end of the day, this is about getting to the truth. And it just seems very clear there's only one party that's interested in doing that. And really, that begs the question, why? If you don't want a bipartisan 9/11 type commission to look at January 6th, well, why is that? What are you afraid of? What are you afraid they're going to find? I mean, I remember when Republicans used to be the party that talked constantly about oversight, about congressional transparency, about the only path to truth being through the House of Representatives, as Jim Jordan once said, to justify the investigations that they conducted relentlessly on the Barack Obama administration. I mean, it's something that, Congressman Swalwell just said. It's really amazing that the law and order party here is the Democratic Party, the party that's interested in getting justice and truth and using the tools of the People's House to get those answers is the Democratic Party now. And that's how far away the Republican Party has wandered away from what they used to talk about constantly.
If you were involved in putting together hearings, if this ends up just being in the committee process, you now have the attorney for one of the insurrectionists, the QAnon shaman. I can't believe I have to say that on television. Literally called them a very offensive term. You can read it on air. Short bus people, saying they were given to propaganda. They were easily duped. They were stupid. It sounds to me like maybe he or his client might be people who might want to be called in front of a committee. Would you recommend that to the Democrats if they have to proceed that way?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the very first witness that they should hear from is the officer that Congressman Swalwell has become friends with. If Republicans don't want to talk to him and take his calls and meet with them privately, well, they should have to sit there and listen to him tell his story directly to their faces. I mean, there are so many people who have been touched and hurt and impacted by what happened on January 6th, and we should put a human face with that. I think one of the things that we learned during the impeachment proceedings of Donald J. Trump, both of them, was when you don't have those witnesses, when you don't have those firsthand accounts, it kind of diminishes the process and the proceeding. Well, we have an opportunity here if Republicans stop the Senate from passing the January 6th commission, well, Democrats have an opportunity to take matters into their own hands and put forward those type of witnesses and let the Republicans sit there and tell them that it was just another day in the tourist world, as a Capitol Police officer tells a very different story.
Yeah, and good luck to Republicans if they think they're going to bury what happened on January 6th. It's not going to happen. It is not going away. Kurt Bardella, thank you very much. Really appreciate you being here.